In the middle of the ocean in the 1800s, a passenger ship carries dozens of people across the sea. Among them are two young cousins, Richard, a 9-year-old boy, and Emmeline, a 7-year-old girl. They are traveling with Richard's father, returning home from a long journey. The children sneaks into a room and find some naked photographs. The ship's cook, Paddy Button, sees them and scolds them for entering his room. Suddenly, flames erupt from below deck. The ship is on fire and panic spreads instantly. People scream and rush toward the lifeboats. Richard's father and several passengers climb into one boat and lower themselves into the water. Paddy grabs Richard and Emmeline and pulls them into a small boat. But in the chaos and thick smoke, their boat drifts away from the others. Paddy tries to call out, but the smoke blinds him. By morning, they are completely lost at sea. For an entire day, Paddy and the children drift without food or water. The next morning, they see an island rises from the horizon, covered in lush green jungle and coconut trees. Paddy rows toward it with relief. When they reach the shore, they explore the island and sees that it has everything they need to survive. Fresh water, fruit trees, and fish in the lagoon. While exploring, Emmeline and Paddy find a barrel of rum while Richard finds something else, a human skull, and shows it to Paddy, who quickly throws it away. Paddy realizes that this island is dangerous. Afterward, they go to a higher ground to see if there's any boat passing by but sees none. Later, Emmeline sees some berries and tries to eat them, but Paddy immediately notices and warns her not to eat them.
If you eat them berries, you'll go to sleep, you'll never wake up again.
For the next days, Paddy teaches Richard and Emmeline how to survive. He shows them how to catch fish and how to build shelter. One night, as Paddy drinks from his barrel, he hears the distant sound of drums echoing from the other side of the island. Curious and uneasy, he goes there the next morning. What he finds chills him to the bone. A stone altar stands in a clearing, and on it lies a piece of human flesh. Paddy realizes that cannibals inhabit the other side of the island, performing human sacrifices to their gods. Paddy tells the children to promise him never to go to that side of the island no matter what. Richard and Emmeline ask him why. Paddy tells them that the boogeyman lives there and he eats small people like them. The children are terrified but agree. One night, Paddy drinks too much rum. He swims into the sea and floats away with the barrel. The next morning, Richard and Emmeline wake up and notice that Paddy is gone. They search the camp but cannot find him. Using binoculars, Richard spots something on the far beach. It's Paddy, lying motionless on the sand. They climb into the boat and paddle over to him. When they reach him, they think he is just sleeping off the alcohol. They call his name and shake him, but Paddy is already dead. Richard and Emmeline are devastated. They are now completely alone. Emmeline cries and tells Richard she cannot stay there anymore. Richard agrees and they gather their few belongings, pack them into the boat, and row to the other side of the island, the side Paddy warned them never to visit. When they arrive, they find the jungle beautiful and full of life. There is food, water, and shelter. They decide to build a new home there and try to forget the past. Years pass by and Richard is now 21 years old and Emmeline is 19. As they mature, changes begin to happen inside them, changes they do not understand. They have no knowledge of puberty, attraction, or love. They only know what their bodies are telling them, and it confuses them. One day, Emmeline is bathing in the lagoon when she gets her first period. Blood appears in the water and she panics.
Richard! Help!
She calls out to Richard in fear. When Richard arrives, she is embarrassed and tells him to go away. Later, when she comes out of the water, Richard asks what happened. He thinks she's injured, but Emmeline refuses to explain. Richard grows frustrated as Emmeline used to tell him everything, but now she is hiding things from him. As time goes on, Richard and Emmeline begin to feel drawn to each other in ways they cannot explain. When Richard walks around shirtless, Emmeline watches him.
What are you looking at?
Your muscles.
And when Emmeline bathes in the lagoon, Richard secretly watches her from a distance. Neither of them understands what these feelings mean. They have no books or adults to explain things to them. They're discovering everything on their own. Despite the confusion, they continue living peacefully. They laugh together, play together, and hope that Richard's father will find them and take them home. One day, Emmeline hears the sound of drums coming from the forbidden side of the island. Curiosity overcomes her, and she decides to go alone. When she arrives, she sees the stone altar Paddy had warned them about. But instead of fear, she feels awe. The altar has flowers and blood drips down its surface, and Emmeline believes it is a holy place. She runs back to Richard and tells him that there's no boogeyman there, and it's just a sacred place of God. Richard is furious and reminds her that they promised Paddy never to go there and forbids her from returning. That night, Emmeline has a nightmare. She dreams that Richard drowns in the ocean and dies. She wakes up in terror and gasping for air. Emmeline begs Richard to promise that he will never leave her. They embrace each other, overwhelmed with emotion. Richard kisses her and tries to go further, but Emmeline pushes him away, unsure and frightened. That night, Richard tries again to go close to her, but Emmeline tells him to stop.
Go away!
Richard is hurt and stops talking to her. The next morning, Emmeline notices Richard hiding behind some rocks doing something in secret. She calls out to him, but he tells her to leave him alone. When Richard is climbing a coconut tree, he sees a ship from the distance. For the first time in years, there is a ship passing near the island. Richard jumps down from the tree and runs toward the hilltop where he and Patty had prepared a signal fire, but by the time he arrives, the ship is too far away and disappears over the horizon. Emmeline also saw the ship from the distance. She was near the signal fire and had the chance to light it, but she chose not to. She has grown to love the island, and it's her home now. When Richard realizes what happened, he explodes in anger. He tells Emmeline that he is fed up with her and that he will leave the island alone. He rides into his custom-made boat and rows away, but the boat breaks apart. Richard falls into the water and is forced to swim back to shore. Emmeline laughs at him, saying that the island is their home now and they should accept it. Richard is furious and begins to argue, hurling insults at each other. Emmeline says she knows what he does alone behind the rocks and threatens to tell his father. Richard fires back, saying she watches him bathe in secret. Emmeline admits she does, but says he watches her too. Enraged, Richard throws a coconut at her but misses. But when Emmeline throws one back, it hits Richard in the head. He slaps her and throws her out of their shelter, saying he built it and she cannot live there anymore. Richard also refuses to share food with her. Emmeline is forced to sleep outside and fend for herself. She struggles to survive alone. Richard watches from a distance, mocking her. In her desperation, Emmeline begins visiting the stone altar and offers flowers to the god she believes lives there. One day, while walking in the shallow water, Emmeline steps on a stonefish. Its venomous spine pierces her foot, and she collapses in agony. When Richard sees her lying there, pale and shaking, he rushes over and asks what happened. She tells him about the stonefish and begs him to take her to the stone altar. Richard carries her in his arms and brings her to the altar and lays her down gently. Emmeline's condition worsens and she loses consciousness. Richard panics, terrified that she will die. He kneels before the altar and prays desperately, begging God to save her. After some time, Emmeline opens her eyes. The poison has passed and she's alive. Richard is overwhelmed with relief. He tells her he was terrified of losing her, that he could not survive on the island alone. Emmeline smiles weakly and asks if he's still mad with her. Richard shakes his head and carries her back to their home. One day, while Richard and Emmeline eat together after swimming on the beach, they look at each other and something shifts between them. Richard asks Emmeline to kiss him, and this time neither of them pulls away. They express their love and become intimate for the first time. They finally understand the feelings that have been growing inside them for so long. From that day forward, they live as a couple, exploring their love and their bodies together. Months pass. Richard begins to notice changes in Emmeline. She is vomiting frequently and seems distant and tired. He asks if she still loves him, and she says yes. Emmeline says her body is hurting, and she does not know why. Emmeline asks Richard to place his hand on her tummy. She tells him something is happening inside her.
How'd you make your tummy move like that?
I'm not doing it.
Richard realizes her belly is growing, and he thinks Emmeline is eating too much. One day, Richard hears the sound of drums again. He goes to the other side of the island and sees tribal people performing a human sacrifice at the stone altar. Richard is horrified and rushes back to warn Emmeline, but he sees her screaming in pain as she's in labor. Richard has no idea what is happening, but he stays by her side. After hours of agony, Emmeline gives birth to a baby boy. They stare at the child in disbelief and wonder. They name him Patty, after the man who saved their lives. At first, they do not know how to care for the baby. They try to feed him with fruit and water, but he cries and refuses. Then Emmeline instinctively holds the baby to her chest, and he begins to nurse, which amazed them. While Richard sharpens his spear, he tells Emmeline about the tribal people he saw on the other side of the island. He tells her that if they ever come to their side of the island, he will protect them both. Years pass. Patty grows into a curious and playful child. One day, the three of them are playing on the beach, covered in wet mud from head to toe. In the distance, a ship appears. It's Richard's father who's still searching for them after all these years. He looks through his telescope and sees three figures on the shore. But they're completely covered in mud and does not recognize them, believing them to be natives. Richard and Emmeline saw the ship, but they do not call out. They're happy now as they have each other and Patty. Sometime later, Richard takes Emmeline and Patty into the boat to the original side of the island to gather fruit. It's the place where they first lived with Patty Button. While Richard climbs a tree to pick fruit, Emmeline stays on the shore with their son. The boy is playing near the boat when he finds red berries and places them on the boat. Emmeline does not notice. while Emmeline and Patty was on the boat. Little Patty throws the oar into the water. Emmeline tries to retrieve it, but can't reach it. She calls out to Richard to retrieve it. Richard dives into the water and swims toward them. Suddenly, Emmeline screams that there is a shark behind him. Richard swims as fast as he can and Emmeline strikes the shark with the remaining oar, scaring the shark away just long enough for Richard to reach the boat. But now they have no way to paddle back. They try to use their hands, but the current is too strong. The boat continues to drift away from the island. For 2 days, they float aimlessly under the burning sun. They have no food, no water, and no way to steer. Little Patty is hungry and picks up one of the red berries and eats it. Richard and Emmeline try to stop him, but it's too late. He has already swallowed the berries. They believe the berry is poisonous and that their son will die. In despair, they decide to eat the berries as well and lie down in the boat, waiting for death. Afterward, all of them lose consciousness. Hours later, Richard's father is once again scanning the ocean with his telescope. He sees a small boat drifting in the distance and orders his men to investigate. They row out and find Richard, Emmeline, and little Patty lying unconscious in the boat. Richard's father leans over them, his face filled with fear, and asks if they're dead.
Are they dead?
No, sir. They're asleep.
The berries were not poisonous, only strong enough to put them into a deep sleep. Richard's father exhales in relief. After so many years, he has finally found his son. And with that, the story comes to an end. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more, and do me a favor by leaving a like below.